Some questions I might ask about this portion of Scripture is, how is this part of the rest of the Sermon on the Mount? What does it mean to be anxious in this context? Does it mean what I think in my context? What does Jesus, or why does Jesus address food, clothing, and water when talking about anxiety? And when he says life is more than food, right here in verse 25, what does that mean? Why does Jesus mention the body so much? How do the birds show evidence of God's care? Why the birds out of all the creatures he could have referred to, right? I'm just thinking through the data. Why is it important to know that people are more valuable to God than birds? What does that emphasize and teach me? Why does Jesus mention Solomon? Who is Solomon? And why is Solomon compared to the beautiful lilies of the field here in verse 29 and 28? What does it mean to seek first God's kingdom? Why does Jesus refer to God as their Father when dealing with anxiety? Why is it bad in this context to be anxious? What does this reveal about a person when they're anxious? And what is God's kingdom, and how do we seek that first? Not just seek it, but seek it first. And then he says, seek God, his kingdom, and his righteousness. What is God's righteousness, and why does that matter? And how does anxiety connect to God's kingdom and God's righteousness?